Okay, awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is George Petersen. I am the Senior Program Manager for Real ID in the United States of America. I work for Transportation Security Administration under the Department of Homeland Security. And I want to say that I'm very honored to be invited to go to GDC. I think this is an amazing event, and I wish I could be a part. But I can't tell you how honored I am that I was invited and to be a part of this inaugural event. Thank you very much to the Swiss Federation and Rolf and all the other amazing people that have been involved. So if we can, is a slide deck, and I actually don't see, there it is. Thank you very much. So we can skip this and go on to the next slide. Okay, so a real bit about Real ID is that just so that everyone understands what it is, it's legislation passed by Congress in the wake of the 9/11 attacks in the United States. And the purpose of Real ID is to improve the level of identity assurance that was issued by the state's licensing agencies, which issue driver's licenses and ID cards. And the whole purpose is to protect our citizens and infrastructure from fraud and threats committed by criminals, illegal aliens, and terrorists or other attacks by improving the level of identity assurance. There are 56 different licensing jurisdictions in the U.S., which covers the 50 states, District of Columbia, and our 5 territories. And there are over 280 million driver's license and ID cards in circulation. And in 2020, Congress reaffirmed its support for the security benefits of Real ID by passing the Real ID Modernization Act, which modernized a lot of the aspects of the original publication, the original legislation passed in 2005, and also authorized, the major part here is mobile driver's licenses after regulations were published. Next slide, please. So the challenge here is we had a very, there were many regulatory challenges. Digital ID in the U.S. Was rapidly innovating. There was a huge consumer demand. There were very large market forces that were driving significant investment by both industry and the state licensing agencies that were choosing to go to mobile driver's license. The digital ID technology, the processes and standards around mobile driver's licenses and other types of licenses, such as verifiable credentials, were immature and mostly in development. And this rapid pace, would render, if we followed more of a traditional rulemaking policy, we would publish regulations that would probably be outdated by the time they are published. Regulatory processes in the U.S. are very long, cumbersome. You're looking at 5 to 7 years generally for the first, a rulemaking to be published, especially if it's a brand new one. And the very risk there too in extending an extensive rulemaking process is that with this rapid investment, the states that would be issuing these digital IDs, there's a risk that with the lack of the many standards, that they could build a variety of solutions, some of which we may find unacceptable to meet our minimum security, privacy, and interoperability requirements. So there was another push there for us to get something out on the street to serve as sort of a guide. Next slide, please. So what we did was rather innovative, at least in the United States government. Maybe not for industry and maybe not even for the states that were implementing this. But what we did is we decided to say, well, we don't know everything. We don't have everything in place. So let's do what we can with what we got and set a standard and sort of communicate through this rulemaking what our long-term objectives are and where everybody should sort of funnel their efforts towards. So what we did is we implemented sort of a multi-phase rulemaking aspect in which we would put out a rule initially that would say, this is what we have, we're going to use the standards that are there, and we're going to sort of fill the holes in the rest of this regulatory framework because we have to cover the issuer, we have to cover the individual that will hold the license, and we have to ensure that, it was securely and privacy connect with relying parties and be interoperable. So what we did is we decided to make this first phase sort of like these are the minimum standards for security, interoperability, and privacy. And then we're also going to use it to learn more about what's out there and how to do it, watch the development of standards, watch the development of alternative types of digital IDs. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't constraining both innovation, the specific solutions towards the digital identification, while also communicating that the goal of the government is to protect citizens, to ensure security, privacy, and interoperability. And so we did this, next slide, really through an intense focus on stakeholder engagement. We really, I think that one of the most important hallmarks of our program is partnership, engagement, collaboration. Uh, and so we did this through a sort of a formal process. Instead of going directly to what we call the first stage rulemaking, which would be a notice of proposed rulemaking, we went into what we call a request for information. And the request for information is basically just that. Look, we want to put a rule together. This is what we're thinking. Why don't you give us comments to help us inform our rulemaking? This is still a regulatory process. It's very public. Comments are public posted. So what this does is it tells the public that we're not doing anything behind closed doors. We're trying to be inclusive of the states, of industry, of privacy advocates, of our citizens. And we left the comment period for this open for extended period of time, 6 months. So in April of 21, we published an RFI. We said, this is what we want to do. This is what we're thinking. This is what we see is what's being out there. This is kind of like what we are sort of the framework that we propose to go forward. In many ways, it was sort of like an NPRM without the additional requirements for that. So then therefore you can publish an RFI much more quickly than you could in an NPRM, which is required to comply with a lot of extra requirements under the APA, or I'm sorry, Administrative Procedures Act. Sorry if I'm using jargon. So with this, we worked closely during the comment period, preparation for this. We worked, and after the close of the comment period, we worked very, very closely with our partners. AMVA, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, who helped lead Working Group 10 and help begin the standardization around mobile driver's licenses. I want to just take a moment to say that legislation under the Modernization Act said mobile driver's licenses. That's a different meaning. They mean any digital ID that would act as the driver's license. It's not strictly the mobile driver's license that's defined under the 180.13-5 standard. So just to clear you up, under the regulation, mobile driver's license is not strictly that. It applies to any digital ID that could be issued by a state licensing agency for driver's license or ID cards. So anyway, we worked very closely with AMVA. They're incredible partners. They set up regional meetings. We met with every single state that was thinking about, actively engaged in implementation of digital IDs for their citizens. We talked to their CIOs. We had public meetings in which we could facilitate extensive comments from industry, privacy advocates. And then we also hosted roundtable with privacy advocacy groups to get a lot of their concerns and ensure feedback from this very critical stakeholder. And next slide. So I'd like to say that this was an amazing success. I'm not patting myself on the back here or anything. This is the result of the incredible partnership that we had with industry, with states, the input that we received from our privacy advocates. Our RFI was published in April 19th of 2021. The comment period was open for 6 months. So you're looking about October when the comment period was closed, October of 2021. We published the notice for proposed rulemaking on August 30th of 2023. That is less than 2 years. This is pretty incredible because you're talking about a brand new, the first comprehensive digital identification regulation published in the United States. It's a pretty big deal and affects almost everybody. And we facilitated this trend, which used the existing standards, filled in the sort of all the other framework that we had with the best industry best practices up to that point. We also put a lot of objectives forward into it. We said it needs to be secure, it needs to be private, it needs to be sort of the standard. We did not stick to specific solutions. We left open we had a sort of a framework in which any solution could be considered. And it would be left up to the certification process to determine if a particular solution met our minimum requirements, security, privacy, and interoperability. So these regulations enable secure and privacy-enhancing use of MDLs in the U.S. They simultaneously facilitate innovation, implementation, investment. The goal is also to ensure, privacy as such that's required by our privacy advocates. And it facilitates the interoperability of these MDLs in other parts of the world, as well as MDLs that would be issued in other parts of the world could be inoperable in the United States. When the NPRM was published, the comment period was only for 45 days, received 31 comments, which is an amazingly small number of comments, especially for a rule that is as innovative, advanced. We had a lot of tech vendors, states, privacy advocacy organizations that responded to with comments. And I'd like to say that we actually made changes to the NPRM and to the final rule with every single comment that was made. The final rule was published in October of 2024. That is almost just 1 year later. It reflects both the speed of our regulatory approach, but also the inclusiveness of the changes that were implemented from the NPRM into the final rule. And right now, TSA has, there are 15 states that are currently operating with mobile driver's licenses in the US. And it leaves open any type of digital ID solution to which a state could issue driver's licenses. Thank you very much.